And so you really are attracting some of the highest levels of healing capability. You're on the leading edge, which is really, really exciting. All right. So let me now just get into this lecture that we're going to do a little bit about the assemblage point. And then I have a case for you. So Aileen has sent me a case, or Eileen, correct me on the saying of your name on your daughter. We'll talk about her. We only use first names, so we're not giving away anyone in particular. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a case, I believe it has to do with fibromyalgia. So we'll talk a bit about that. All right. So again, I'll take any of your questions. Look, I want to just read you something about the assemblage point here. I'm going to send you the link for the class, but we're going to talk a bit more about the assemblage point. As you're sitting there, you may want to now start to focus on the area around your heart chakra and try to intuit, use your intuition to be guided to, just even not knowing too much about the assemblage point, this very important point in the body, a very important energy point. See if you can sense where it is. It should be right in the center by your heart chakra, but often it's moved to the left, to the right, it's moved lower, it's moved higher than it should be. So see if you can even sense where it should be. The lower that it moves, the more dangerous it actually is. So see if you can just sort of turn inward for a moment, close your eyes, and see if you can get a sense of where that assemblage point is displaced. And see if you now maybe just write something down below. Where do you think that your assemblage point, if it is displaced, where it might be? Things that cause displacements are physical trauma, emotional trauma. This could have happened when you were 3 years old or 7 years old, and this trauma moved the assemblage point, which was brought into your body when you were born, the moment of birth. That assemblage point comes in from the mother to the child. This is an energetic, the energetic source is not from the mother, but it comes in the womb. So the umbilical cord connects us to the placenta, and that becomes the major input of energy that enters the fetus via the navel. So it's definitely a very, very important focal point, but then it moves up to the center point around the heart. So we're going to look at all of this. So if you can imagine where your own assemblage point is, do you guys have a sense of just, I'd love to hear from you if you just have an intuitive sense, is yours moved to the left? Is yours moved to the right? Has it moved down? Has it moved to the lower right, to the lower left? I'd love to hear if you have a sense of where it is in the body. And I want to read you a quote about the assemblage point. Shifting the assemblage point is the fastest way back to normality, high biological energy, and improved mental and physical health. Let me say that again. Shifting the assemblage point is the fast way back to normality, high biological energy, and improved mental and physical health. Even in people who have been sick for a very long time, realignment can make a significant contribution to their recovery. So if you know someone who has been ill for a long time, or if you yourself has felt that there is a missing link to try to solve this issue that you're dealing with your health, very likely the assemblage point is one piece of that puzzle that you may have been missing. So anybody have a sense? Your voice has an echo quality not experienced before. It's clear but good. Okay, sorry about that. That is because of the room that I'm doing the lecture in. So just keep me posted on the quality of the voice. We'll do our best. If it's echoing a lot, then let me know. And we have someone who says it's moving to the lower left. That's a very common displacement That's a very common displacement of the assemblage point. So do you guys have, anybody have another idea of where the displacement of the assemblage point has gone? Let's do a quick sound check. So if you can hear my voice okay, except for the echo quality, then please let me know. Let's just do a quick sound check. Let me know that the sound is actually doing okay. And then we're going to switch our view here. We're going to talk a bit about the assemblage point and, of course, take your questions. Okay, Dr. Kim, thank you. She says it's perfectly fine. I do really appreciate that. And let's get a few more checks here. Perfectly, okay, got that one. Okay, Annette says okay. Randall says sound okay. Sound okay, but a bit of an echo, but not a problem. That's the floors here. So I hear you fine. Beatrice says, hey, Sophie. She says it sounds okay. So thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. Okay, so the whole thing with the assemblage point that's exciting is that the course is going to talk about, and I'm going to talk now about what the assemblage point is, so you're going to get a lot of that information. The exciting thing is that we're going to be putting the assemblage point back where it belongs with the quantum infinity. And the really, really cool process that we're going to be using is going to combine biofeedback with working at the meridian points and working on the emotions in the endeavor to move the assemblage point back, because we want to clear out the original reasons why it moved in the first place. So you were born basically with this wonderful energy. So this really like the center of a tornado. Or the epicenter, you know, just sort of the centering energy. Imagine a spiral and where the center of the energy is. That is what the assemblage point is in your body. It's a massive epicenter of energy, and it's a very, very important energetic placement in your body. It gives you a wonderful connection to the divine, and it helps your body when the energy is flowing properly. It helps your body to physically function well. So you had this as a baby, you had this when you were born. However, the moment after you were born, and depending on how traumatic the birth experience was, it may have moved. And as it shifts down to the right or down to the left, and as it gets closer to the abdomen and especially closer to the liver, it becomes quite dangerous. The proper place for it is actually up near the thymus. So around the heart chakra and around the thymus gland, which is sort of like the center of your chest area. And when it's there, the energy is flowing. It's like that's the perfect angled location for it. And so you feel amazing. Like imagine the days that you remember waking up, maybe it's now. You wake up, my goodness, the sun is shining, you feel great, you want to start your day, you're excited about life. If at any time in your life somebody made you feel shame, humiliation, some type of an emotional abuse or a violation, or you had a very severe physical trauma, or maybe a minor physical trauma that felt like a big physical trauma, it's very likely that this assemblage point then became shifted to the right or to the left. A very typical shift of the assemblage point is to the left. Because of, you know, really excessive thought patterns, thinking about things, trying to cogitate, really trying to work on all of the mental processes of our lives. So in the process of moving it back, it's not an instant reversal of the assemblage point. We don't move it back instantaneously and have it stay there. It can take some time to move it back permanently. So that is why we're going to be going through the process. All right, let's go to here. So again, a major input location of energy, but once it begins to move back and once you feel that flow again, it's like you've had, you know, you've gone away on vacation, you've come back and it feels better. In fact, there are different things that tend to move the assemblage point out of balance, even once you've gotten into balance. In other words, things that move the assemblage point would be like too much mental work without taking a break. Things that move the assemblage point back into alignment are meditation, and particularly the brain waves that are generated during meditation. So you can always be working towards bringing that assemblage point back into balance. And your good practices, your good health practices help that. Sometimes you need a major movement of your assemblage point because it's gotten so out of balance. So one thing I want you to think about now when you're working with people with biofeedback is, particularly if they tell you they've never been better since this particular event, a very severe car injury, car accident might be the case, or a sexual abuse, or a divorce. So this would cause the assemblage point, which a good location for it is exactly that orange that you're seeing right near the thymus gland, but it can really move down low. So try to even sense if it's there. And just by closing your eyes, you're going to gently sort of be guided to where it is displaced. It's also common for it to be displaced on the right side. So we're going to talk about all of those. And as a person gets ready to leave their body, the assemblage point moves very, very low. And so we want to sort of move it, inch it back in order to regain vitality. And in fact, every doctor should be looking, at the assemblage point in consideration of what's going on with that person, and particularly with mental, emotional issues. So we're really going to be working together through the process of how to do this, and then working with very specific panels that can help you. And now I want you to integrate this into all your biofeedback sessions where it seems appropriate. And this will go a long way to helping people gain back their physical energy. So if somebody's been on medication for a very long time, or if somebody has a severe mental health issue, I mean, all these people need professionals, but it's probably the assemblage point that is part of the issue. So this is one of the most exciting things that I discovered in my meanderings on energetic health, is even when I just heard the word, the assemblage point, or the phrase assemblage point, it really struck something within me, sort of maybe an ancient memory. And it's like, this is something that's really important. And the great news is that in our understanding of the assemblage point and brain waves and bringing balance and using Young Living oils, that we can use our quantum infinity to facilitate this. So if you know somebody who's had depression for a very long time, or they're just have tried every remedy for their very chronic illness, this is probably the issue. This is probably part of the picture that they're dealing with. Because if your assemblage point has moved quite low, it will be very difficult for you to overcome anxiety or depression. So, everybody on here is a very, very smart healer. Very, very smart, very clever. And this is another piece of the puzzle, a very important piece of the puzzle. So as you sort of put all the tools in your tool chest, working with the assemblage point will continue to become sort of an important integrated part of what you're doing. We're also going to be talking about the brain circuits, the brain lobe circuits, and those are very, very important to talk about. These may not be things that you've ever heard of before, but we're going to talk about balancing those brain circuits, and we're going to be talking about balancing brain frequency. So that's another important part of the whole picture, is the frequency of the brain. So if we can work with the frequency of the brain through meditation or different exercises, these are some of the panels that we're working on, we will find that we're able to move the assemblage point for into a much more permanent state. So unfortunately, some of the things that we're doing with wireless and constantly switching our attention and all of those things are really, really finding that the assemblage point is going more out of balance. So we're going to be testing those left brain lobe circuits and right brain lobe circuits in order to really clarify what things may be keeping the assemblage point from staying in balance, which is really, really important. Okay, so you have that link. So a couple of things that I just want to point out about it. And then we're going to get into this case, which I think this will be a good case for us to talk about. Any of your other questions are certainly welcome. Let me just tell you about what we'll be doing in the class. We'll learn what the assemblage point is. Let's look at this together. Why it must be adjusted to fully regain health and how to use it to gain your optimal health back. So we'll talk about what the assemblage point is, where its optimal location is. We'll talk about left and right brain balancing. We'll talk about the 4 left lobe brain circuits, and then we'll bring it all together for how to heal the assemblage point with the quantum infinity and how to use biofeedback and young living oils to bring the assemblage point back to its rightful location. Now, this class is going to start a week from this Wednesday. So that's when the class starts. It'll be at 5 o'clock Pacific or 8 o'clock Eastern time. And that is going to be a really groundbreaking class. Let me get to some of your questions here. Teresa and Roger, welcome. Hey, Pear is here. That's so great. We have one near the solar plexus. So yeah, if your assemblage point is close to your solar plexus, you're not going to feel good. So I think this is going to be a key for you. The person who said solar plexus, I think this is going to be really, really important, having movement of that assemblage point, and it's beginning to bring it up. We send the PDF so we can have the information you are using on the assemblage point. Actually, Dana, that is part of the class. So if you want those slides, they do come with the class. So please do join us for that. And I want to give a shout out here to some of the people joining us from around the world today. Brian is here. Welcome, Brian, from Southern California. Dr. Kim is here. So great to have her joining today. Mary Lee is here. Yay, Mary Lee, thank you for being here. Pear is here. Woo! Pear, we haven't seen you in a while. Sharon from Canada is here, our resident yoga expert. So great to have her. Sophie's back from France, and Sophie is sort of the middle part of California near St. Louis Obispo. Really nice to have you. Teresa and Roger checking in, I believe from, I'm going to say Tennessee, but that's where Annette is from. So I'm going to get you guys have to remind me. And but it's always so great to have you guys here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're midsummer here. I hope you're enjoying your summer. And we're going to get to our case right now. So we have some important things. Anything you want to tell me more about the case, we can do. The person who sent me the case will know in just a second. Let's find out some information here. I love doing cases, so I'm really glad that somebody sent me a case to do. This will be great to talk about. Okay, let's get this. I believe this is a case of some mental health stuff, mental emotional stuff going on, and some physical stuff going on. So remember, we keep all of this information private and anonymous. So we've got symptoms, got some mental health stuff going on, possibly some bipolar stuff. Bipolar is a tough one to deal with, but really in the context of what we're talking about, bipolar for sure is going to have an assemblage point issue. So moving and working with the assemblage point will be part of the solution. We never look at any one thing to be the solution. That's just not realistic. However, miracles are possible. And when you do get the right thing that has been missing, it is pretty amazing what can happen. Sometimes you bring in biofeedback and miracles really do happen. And when you bring in the right thing that has been out of balance for so long, where the energy coming into the body is quite distorted because the assemblage point is misplaced or displaced, then this is really, really helpful to recognize. So we have irritability, obsessive thinking, mild depression, insomnia, highs and lows. This is very typical of a bipolar person. Bipolar person will sometimes have lots and lots of excessive energy, maybe very loquacious, meaning they're just talking, and they're doing things. This is not true here, but they might be overspending, or they might be doing something very risky. and then they'll just collapse. Their energy will collapse. They might sleep for an entire day. So it's a very, very tough thing to deal with, and it's a tough one to really find a good solution for. Use essential oils and sleeping pills. Also keep a regular routine, otherwise an imbalance will occur. So routine is really, really important. The symptoms include there are fibromyalgia symptoms. So as I'm reading the case, if you guys have any thing that you want to say about the case, then let me know. Let me just switch the view for 1 minute. Let's get the assemblage point up here so I can get in the personal information. So let me just read the rest of this here. Mild joint pain, muscle soreness, fuzzy thinking, very little symptoms since doing cardio training and lifting weights. So, of course, exercise is going to help to improve the dopamine and the serotonin. So any mental health issue that you're dealing with, if you have somebody who has depression, anxiety, often exercise is going to help. You guys, we live in a very strange world today where people simply are not getting enough basic exercise because we are connected to these computers. Hopefully you're at your treadmill desk today. But walking, really increasing your walking time is super, super important. So if you can take time in the morning, time in the afternoon, and the time in the evening, you can probably start to rack up some miles. And the optimal time for human beings to walk every day is 18 to 24 miles. It sounds crazy, but that's what we need to completely circulate all of our lymphatics and move the metabolic waste. So very little sugar, taking sleeping pills though, taking specific supplements. So taking sleeping pills can shift the assemblage point. So now you have this new awareness about it. Keeping stress low, using essential oils, meditation, yoga and stretching, massage and myofascial release treatments, chiropractic care. If this list is not strictly adhered to, then the symptoms become very high on the scale, such as depression, a toxic feeling, achy, soreness, painful joints, tired, non-motivated, and irritable. That is a tough situation, you guys, because if she gets out of her routine or doesn't do the things that are necessary to sort of balance her neurotransmitters, she can have, a lot of problems, a lot of pain, and a lot of mental, emotional issues. Had mercury poisoning around 1980 through 1991, which mostly I'm not sure can you tell us, I think you're with us today, can you tell us what the cause of the mercury poisoning was? Was it just dental fillings, which would be a major exposure, but was it something else? Was treated and removed the mercury. Okay, well that sounds like dental fillings and other heavy metals by chelation. Other medications, sun chlorella, and many healing modalities. Constipation, taking fiber supplements and eating high fiber and papaya to keep the bowels working properly. Okay, so very, very good information here. And this is being recorded, so if the person wants to come back and look at that later, then it'll be available for them to listen to this at a later time. So what I need to do now is just take this. All right, let me get this down here. Perfect. Okay, so what questions do you guys have for me about this case? What questions would you like to know? Let's get those. Do you think that it could possibly be displaced assemblage point based on what we've just talked about? And what would be some of your recommendations? I'm just going to change the view so I can get in the personal information here. We do like to keep that private. So what more things would you like to know if this was your client that you were working with? And what things would you like to look at on the quantum infinity? What kinds of things would you like to balance? What panels would you use? What would be your go-to panels? And what things would you begin to investigate for this person? What would you like to look at and know more about? Would you like to know more about infections? Would you like to know more about the heavy metals or food sensitivities? What about looking at neurotransmitters? Those of you who have my testing panels have access to be able to test all of these things. I love biofeedback. This is the time of biofeedback. As I learn from many of you, and also just from my experience in researching more about the power of bioresonance, I begin to, really understand that biofeedback is so powerful. Biofeedback is maybe our saving grace in this time, because sometimes we don't have remedies that can work in the same way that biofeedback does. And often when we have something like bipolar issues, we have a lot of things that we need to investigate and look at so we can investigate more precisely. We can clear more quickly all of the things going on with that person. Now, I do recommend, if you haven't been doing it, that you have each one of your clients bring a water bottle with them. Oh, I'm so sorry here. We don't have the view. And if you're seeing them live and in person, and even for yourself when you do your daily balancing, get a water bottle and put those geos near the water bottle. And balance and make sure you're drinking all of your frequencies, so you're continuing to bathe in those frequencies that you chose for yourself or for your client. Okay, quick look here, which is really interesting, is look at that injuries at 18. And so when I see injuries on the Da Vinci screen, I often think of past injuries and interference fields. So can you tell us about your daughter? Did she have any car accidents, injuries, surgeries? Because this tells me that this was probably part of the original picture going on for her past injuries. And so interference fields probably are part of the picture. We've got some nutriopathy, so definitely looks like nutrition may be part of our picture. We really need a new and fresh fear panel. It's something that I'm going to be working on for sure. We need sort of an intense fear panel, maybe a customized panel, because the phobias doesn't quite cut it, but this number at 775 does tell us that fear is playing a part on a daily basis. We probably have some food sensitivities, and that's all I really want to talk about on this panel for now. I want to go right to the risks panel and sort of do my physical overview, because I'm trying to gain an understanding. And I do think that the assemblage point is going to be a big part of the correction here. So I hope that you can join us for that class. That is, again, probably an important part, maybe not a coincidence that you actually asked about it at this time. There's some synchronicity there. All right, so we have some underlying bacteria, we have an underlying infection. Fungus, that's interesting. Fungus is often present with heavy metals that have not cleared. Now, we're not showing heavy metals here, but I'm still suspicious there may be heavy metals. So we see fungus. That also might tell us that there's an imbalance in the gut microbiome. In the future, I believe a precise assessment of the gut microbiome deficiencies and a replenishment with specific microbiome, maybe one's a gut microbiota that is more conducive to balancing neurotransmitters. Okay, just a real quick and dirty example of this whole thing about the microbiome. We know that if we have two mice and we put them side by side, this was a study that was actually done, and we destroy all of the gut flora in mouse number 1. Mouse number 2, perfect regular mouse gut flora. We feed them the same amount of calories. After several weeks, the poor mouse number 1, where we destroyed, like as in an antibiotic, all of the gut flora becomes obese. Mouse number 2, fed the same amount of calories, stays exactly the same, doesn't change. And so there's this huge difference in life experience, metabolism, mood, neurotransmitters, hormones based on the gut microbiota. So if you do things like drink alcohol, take antibiotics, even coffee can destroy the gut microbiome. So you have to keep replenishing it. What are you doing to make sure that that gut bacteria is well taken care of? Do you take soil-based organisms? Do you drink kefir? That's a really important point. So I think that this fungus is important, and so we certainly would want to balance it. The point of doing a cross-analysis where you get the fungal milieu, you get sort of the very specific fungus in here, the whole point of that is so that you can really be precise in your balancing. So the more you can laser focus your balancing, the more it tends to move things through quickly. So think of this as a frequency finder. We're trying to find a more specific frequency. We don't have to sit down and have a sort of a whole collegiate study of these particular fungi or posit whether they're accurate or not. These are representative of a particular frequency, and when we get the right frequency, we have quicker resolution. So it is very good to say that, yes, they have a fungus, but it is more important to clear the fungus with the correct and matching frequency. So we use these top frequencies, and we use the last frequency at the bottom. So it looks like there for sure is some candida. That's not a surprise. This is probably the residual of the things that she's worked through. She's obviously gotten a lot better. She's worked a lot on her own healing, and we have to really, give credit to her. That's a really tough thing to work through, being bipolar. That's tough. So really kudos to her. Okay, so then we've got our fungus down there. We know that we've got an underlying infection. We've probably got some liver stuff going on, and we've got some food sensitivities. So what I do is if I were doing a session, I would do some emotional balancing in the beginning for about 3 to 5 minutes. I then test the risks. I'm going to take some of these frequencies from the risks and I'm going to balance it for another 3 minutes. All the while I'm usually talking to my client. Then I like to make a note of things that I really want to look at, because that's why I created all of those testing panels. So a lot of you on here have those testing panels, and I'm so glad that you do, because they can really, really help you in doing biofeedback. So for her, I want to look at neurotransmitters and heavy metals. Let's start with that, okay? And let's see where that leads us. So let's go back here. And we'll go to our customized categories. No, that's not going to take us there. There we go. Try that. Okay, that works. All right, so let's look at some neurotransmitters and let's look at some heavy metals. You never really, I add in all of the interpretive information, but that doesn't mean that you need to know all of the interpretive information. All you need to know is how to balance, how to put things into the biofeedback tray. You can make yourself more educated and take the classes and learn more about it, do my certificate program and learn a whole bunch about natural medicine. And here we see we're showing a shift to the right and a shift to the left. So it may be going back and forth, which is interesting because bipolar, going back and forth 2 directions. So that's pretty fascinating. We definitely do see elemental mercury. This is different from ethyl mercury. I believe the ethyl mercury is from the fish. The elemental mercury is from the fillings. We do have some lead. The person that we're working on was born, let's just say, in the 50s or 60s. So this is a time when DDT, lead, those types of things were pervasive in the environment. And fortunately, we take that with us for decades. Once it gets in the body, it is what is called pervasive. It stays there until we do something to remove it. It looks like the chelation was not totally successful in removing all of that. So, we do know about mercury that it causes neurological symptoms. That's the biggest thing about mercury. We've got some lead as well. Now, clinical pearl about the lead, which is disturbing and distressing, but hey, where there's a problem, there's a solution. The solution is biofeedback, run your frequencies, drink the water, and we'll talk about some of the solutions for the heavy metals. So she definitely, I think, being on some type of program to continue to clear these heavy metals would be really, really helpful. The thing about lead is that for women who were born in the 50s and 60s and then are either in menopause, postmenopausal, or approaching menopause, is they tend to be losing, you guys think of this, what it is, they tend to be losing bone density. Where is the heavy metal lead stored? In the bones. So as they start to lose bone density, if lead is stored in the bones, where do you think it mobilizes to? The blood. And so then they start having symptoms later in life. Hopefully not. I mean, you can have heavy metals in your body and not have symptoms. It's when that you start having symptoms, obviously, that this is an issue. So we can generally say that there's still a heavy metal issue here. Now, interestingly enough, the new sort of pearl of wisdom coming from the Dr. Klinghardt camp, interestingly, is that aluminum is the new heavy metal to be aware of, sort of worldwide. So you want to energetically make sure you're testing everybody for aluminum. And again, we have to use the same things that we use to clear heavy metals. Aluminum is a tough one to clear, but probably because of the suspicious sprayings in the sky, aluminum has become a worldwide heavy metal of interest, even more these days than mercury. Interestingly enough, maybe because so many people have chosen not to have dental fillings that are silver, probably in the past 10 to 15 years. Okay, so what would be good for her? We always like to look at that. Remember, when you're pulling down these frequencies, you're pulling down a lot of the energy of the solution. Even if you don't give nutritional recommendations, putting these frequencies into water is quite powerful. So we have chlorella and cilantro. Even though my environmental snob, a PhD, environmental medicine teacher, mentor, really thinks that the cilantro and the chlorella has not been borne out in the physical studies to show that they remove heavy metals, I have to say that they come up time and time and time again for people in the heavy metal exposure treatment. So I think that chlorella and cilantro are very good for removing heavy metals based on the energetic information and sort of my gut. You guys never discount your gut. Their studies can prove just about anything, but your gut feeling is really tuning into universal wisdom. It's really, really important to trust your gut. And again, I love pyrophyllite clay. Look at the difference in the resonance between bentonite clay, which sometimes can be contaminated, ironically, with heavy metals, and also can cause constipation, which she said she had constipation. And for someone who's over the age of 45 or 50, constipation is often the liver gallbladder reaction to the reduction in estrogen. So unfortunately, once that estrogen falls, the gallbladder basically goes to sleep, and it's not producing that bile in the same robust way that it once was. And this is related actually to having a healthy bowel movement. So we're going to find that women over the age of 45 and 50, if the bloaty belly, they're not moving the bowels as regularly, they're going to need to employ different things to do so. And the best way is to continue to work on good production of bile through dandelion, milk thistle, beets, beet powder. All of those things are very, very important. So back to the heavy metals, and we see bentonite clay at 494. We see pyrophyllite clay at 680. This tells us 680 is more preferred by the energy field than the bentonite clay. So pyrophyllite clay is good for healing or clearing heavy metals, but it contains silica. Silica is a very magical mineral. We know, I could not think clearly on Thursday for those of you who are in class, and I was reaching for anthroposophical medicine and Rudolf Steiner. Anthroposophical medicine and Rudolf Steiner. If you read Rudolf Steiner, he sort of waxes poetic about nettles. He's really into nettles, and nettles contain a lot of silica. As you age, as your hair thins and the skin changes, it is not a sign of aging as much as the fact that you're not getting enough silica replenished in your body. So we have here the need for heavy metal cleansing. Now let's go to the neurotransmitter assessment. Let's take a break and get some of your juicy comments and see what you guys have to say here. Okay, Pear says, I've missed so many Tuesdays. I'm sorry for that. Pear, this is our last Tuesday Healers Roundtable. So Pear, come back to my classes. Come to the Assemblage Point class. But I will be here on Thursdays, so please do come back. We certainly love having your energy and love hearing what you're up to. He's doing a lot of great work, I know, with homeopathy. So I assessed myself today on the assemblage point and got both up and down shift. That's possible for the reason I talked about today. It doesn't mean you're bipolar, but it means that there is a movement in the shift. As you meditate and take care of yourself, go for a run or whatever, it may move the assemblage point into more balance. And as you maybe stay up late or the food is toxic and so forth, it'll move it out of balance. Really, really important. In Indian medicine, they always check to see if your solar plexus is aligned. That's very interesting. That's from Sophie. They also check signs of electrosensitivity. I would do an EMF assessment for her daughter. Yeah, I mean, I think, but you know what, Sophie, the thing about EMF is I definitely think a correction could make a difference, but this is long standing. This isn't in the past 10 years when we've seen the EMF sort of revolution. But I do have a lot of concerns about the continued willy-nilly use of EMF. Just briefly, I was in Best Buy getting an iPad for someone. When somebody wants the quantum infinity and they're not tech savvy, I want to let everyone know that your referrals, I will put the quantum infinity on a new iPad for them. And I just basically put the receipt in the box and they get it at cost. I do it as a free service, and I put all of their bonus apps on there and all of my panels on there for them. So they can just open up the box, they can push the start button, and they've got everything set up. So when I was at Best Buy yesterday doing that for someone who's getting their new Quantum Infinity system, I asked about, could I put surround sound in my home, right? Could I have really good sound, and I want to listen to Indian tabla music and Chinese healing music all over my home. And he said, oh, definitely, you can use a Sonos, and it basically runs through your phone. Well, it's Bluetooth and wireless all over your phone. I said, forget it. I'd rather go back to these crazy things called wires and put wire speakers all over my home. It is really like, some people have compared wireless and EMFs to smoking. And imagine that now that we're smoking all over our home all the time, right? So her daughter worked in a dental office, handled and breathed mercury, ate a lot of fish which had mercury. Okay, Aileen, this really goes back to, I think, adjusting that assemblage point and continuing to do a heavy metal clearing is going to be essential. I'm not a big fan of, and we can see the elemental mercury up here, right there. So it just has not been able to get out of the tissue. Saunas, infrared saunas, perhaps hyperbaric oxygen would be something. We want to see this number start to change. So you want to use your quantum infinity as the setting the bar for what it is now and coming back and rechecking it as she does her therapies. So I'm not a huge fan of chelation because I've seen some people get worse with chelation. Chelation is said to actually strip away at the cell membrane level, and that concerns me. So when it strips the mercury, it may do it by also stripping or damaging the cell membrane. That's not to say that the chelation that she did in the past was not valuable, because for some people it's right. For each thing that we sort of ask about and think about, there's a holy trinity. Yes, no, maybe. So when we think about chelation, is it always the right thing? Yes, no, maybe. Is it the right thing maybe for one person? Maybe. So you see, so there's never a completely, we'll always get tripped up if we think about an absolute answer. But in general, I'm not a huge fan of chelation because I think the body can better process it through cilantro, chlorella, sweating, hyperbaric chambers, hot and cold therapies, etc. But this is, and of course the pyrophilite clay. So this is a big thing for her to work on. I didn't hear feedback though about the injuries. Did she have any past injuries or accidents? I'd like to know about that. Have they had significant emotional trauma or never been well since? So has she had significant trauma or never been well since? And Dr. Kim says, oh, check for methylation. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, she's probably got the MTHFR. We can check that energetically in a moment. Yeah, but she's probably got MTHFR SNPs, SNPs that are out of balance. So that could have caused her to be bipolar in the first place. So if she never absorbed the folic acid correctly, or if she took in a lot of folic acid through B vitamins that are synthetic, that could have even tripped up or triggered a bipolar episode. Can you check toxicity and stress? Okay, let's do that. Let's take a quick picture of this and a quick picture of this in case we need to go back to it. A couple of things we didn't get to talk about. We'll go to the toxicity and stress in a moment. I think we have established toxicity, for sure. Let's get a couple more comments. I want to talk about neurotransmitters first. Interesting that the cario dropped out. What is that? What's the cario? I don't know what that is. Let me know. Aluminum is in the, okay, when I say suspicious sprayings in the sky, that's my secret euphemism for that, the CTs. Does aluminum clear with sauna use? Okay, Mary Lee, you have asked a spectacular question. I do not know the answer to that. Mary Lee asks, does aluminum clear with sauna use? This I'm going to have to look up because aluminum is a quandary for us. It doesn't chelate well, and it's hard to know how to, it doesn't seem to clear from the body very easily. So let me find out. Mostly all metals will clear with sweating, but I want to find that out, so I'm going to get back to you. Okay, Kelly, you and Dr. Kim are sort of have synced up here in your thinking. What about methylation or amino acid protein conversion issues? Not sure what it's called, but Harper has a circle chart to show this. So yes, very, very good. Because we saw that there was, I think, some nutritional issues, right, like with the nutriopathy. So she may not be absorbing, but she may also need to use food as medicine in getting the right amino acid combination. We do see norepinephrine being out of balance. This may be a tyrosine deficiency. We'd have to look at that. Acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is, that's really interesting. I'm not sure it's related to bipolar, but I'd like to look and see. We usually think of acetylcholine being out of balance for people who have dementia. I'm not saying she has dementia, or acetylcholine starting to go out of balance for people who are aging, who may have memory issues. So we use huperzine A to help with the memory and cognition. It may help in general. It's telling us out of balance. We certainly should run the frequency, and then I'd want to read some information to see if it's actually helped people with being out of balance mentally, emotionally. Now, I think the glutamate is super, super interesting because glutamate is responsible for that excitotoxin experience. And I think there's some of that when a person is in a bipolar episode where they're in the sort of the stimulated, sort of extrovert sort of experience, sort of the hyper part of the bipolar experience. And so that glutamate, we'd like to see this get back into balance. The way to break down glutamate usually is with GABA. When I'm doing a long distance session and I see 236, I'd like that person to be testing it in person. I suspect the GABA is actually out of balance. If we had them here personally, we would see that. So I do think that balancing the norepinephrine and the phenylethylamine, this is a very strong communication that the neurotransmitters are out of balance, and particularly the feel-good neurotransmitters like phenylethylamine and serotonin, even though serotonin seems to be sort of borderline. So I think that there is a good case to be made for amino acids to support neurotransmitters. I would definitely need to do a more in-depth consultation, perhaps even employ some neurotransmitter testing, which can be done through different labs. Okay. And, thank you, Catherine. I'll definitely get in touch with the other Catherine. Thank you for saying that. No injuries. Okay, that's interesting. I'm finding my beneficial treatments panel. I find my beneficial treatments panel to be very helpful when wondering what is best. That's very good. So Sharon made a panel that she just calls beneficial treatments. That's really excellent. And definitely any of your solutions panels, I always encourage you guys to drill down that information. So for example, if you didn't know for your daughter, like what's the best remedy for her to take, just make one best remedies for her and make a panel on that. That's great. Our family has a huge acetylcholine issue. I believe it's due to not digesting fat. My kids and I have it. You have to look at the relationship between digestion of fat. That's, as you said, like a liver gallbladder issue, or perhaps it's a lipase issue. So the two Catherines, I love it. Yeah, so we have to look into that. So what you see in naturopathic medicine is a way that people who are good at that are good at fitting together all the pieces of the puzzle. And Kelly, you're very, very good at that, seeing the big picture and putting the little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. Now, when we look at this neurotransmitter solutions, we do see the huperzine, which is specifically to support acetylcholine. So what I recommend that you do is run the frequencies for huperzine, the frequencies for acetylcholine, and also do some research on these two neurotransmitters and how they might be related to ups and downs in mood, or perhaps even some studies have been done on the connection to bipolar disorder. Okay, glutamine, magnesium, stretching exercise, that's interesting, isn't it? So stretching exercise, yeah, I think that there may be sort of an inward congested sort of body experience. I think that's why the yoga and the stretching is good. And I think that's why the injuries comes up. So who knows, like sort of the energy field affecting the physical body in these emotional ups and downs, that may be why the injuries thing is lighting up. Okay, so Sophie wanted to see the toxicity panel. Well, I have no doubt in the toxicity panel that EMF stuff will come up, and that it is an aggravator. I know when Sophie gets focused on something, she like goes laser focus into it and wants to see that toxicity stress from EMF. I have no doubt. I'm still on the track with the MEMON technology, so I'm finally getting they've sort of got their stuff together. I'm talking to Germany, and we're going to be getting an import of a big supply of MEMON technology, the very, very best to have in your home to protect you from EMF. We've got to have EMF technology in our home to protect us because of how it's changing us at a fundamental level. Kelly says, yes, we always need lipase. We also have glutamate issues. We can't digest the supplement. It has something to do with that strange conversion. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's an important connection there for this case. And because we saw that the liver was out of balance. So Sophie, you're right. You're absolutely right. We can let's peek at liver solutions quickly in our last few minutes here. And let's go to liver. And definitely, please do sign up. You're going to be getting some more information about the assemblage point class. But I've already got the $200 discount incorporated in there. So you're going to be getting a lot of information that's really important for helping yourself and other people. I think you're going to be surprised at how your life and your outlook on life can change once that assemblage point becomes balanced. So use that link to sign up for the class, and we'll be starting that a week from Wednesday. And we'll really be talking about the brain waves, how the brain waves affect different organs of the body. Like the out of balance brain waves can affect the liver, interestingly enough. And then that liver, the brain waves affecting the liver, can actually shift the left side of the brain. Those brain waves being out of balance affecting the liver function can cause the assemblage point to shift to the right. So there's a whole body-mind experience going on there. It's really completely fascinating. It's really blowing me away. So we'll be able to really bring those into balance, the brain, the organ, the assemblage point, using emotions, Young Living Oil, and biofeedback. Okay, so again, she really does need to keep working on the liver. Kelly, I think that was a home run because I think that the liver and the conversion of the using the lipase to help with the fat digestion and also supporting the gallbladder, I do think that that's important. It could be to help the production of acetylcholine, and I do think that there's a liver element to the whole thing going on with her. Everything would get better, and certainly she's taking sleeping pills, so she needs the liver support in general. So milk thistle, niacin, although be careful with niacin, you should work with a naturopath or chiropractor. Malic acid, which comes from green apples, castor oil pack, carrot juice, all of those things would be really, really helpful for her. So let me just sum this up in the last minute that we have here. We need to continue heavy metal clearing because of the neurological connection. We need to work on the neurotransmitters and the acetylcholine specifically, but also serotonin and phenylethylamine. So looking into amino acids that you can take specifically to support that would be helpful. And also the EMF issue, making sure that her wireless is turned off at night and that she's very careful about having her ear to the cell phone or using the cell phone too much or being around wireless frequency too much. So she should take some care to correct that from an exposure perspective. And these would be the next logical steps. And then shifting the assemblage point back into balance would be very, very important. Oh, the cardio dropped off after risks was done again. Oh, that's interesting. No, I didn't do it again. That was I didn't have her up initially. But that's very good. That was just our collective consciousness. We had a cardiovascular issue going on. So you guys, thank you so much. This is our last Healers Roundtable, but I'll have lots of free webinars coming up at different times on different days. So really stay tuned to that weekly newsletter and come on Thursdays. If you've been coming on Tuesdays, just come on Thursdays and join me for that free class for the advanced training. If you have any suggestions for topics or things that you want me to look at, then please send them to awakentotalhealth.com. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. Many blessings, much love. Thank you so much for bringing that case for us to do. I really appreciate it. And if you have cases you want me to work on Thursday, send them to me. Send me their first and last name and their date of birth, and I will do cases on Thursday. Okay, have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care now and be well. Bye-bye for now.